200 calls. That is the number. Not the number that will make you rich, the number you have to get through before the number that will make you rich even becomes visible. Nobody tells you this on day one. They tell you about commission structure and upside potential and the guy on the 4th floor who drove a Porsche last year. They do not tell you that the Porsche is not the destination. The Porsche is just proof that someone else survived the 200 calls. You are about to find out if you.
Level 1. The cold caller. You are 22 years old. Your base salary is $32,000. Your desk is the third from the left in a row of 14. The floor smells like stale coffee and carpet cleaner. The headset cuts into your ear by 11 a.m. The list has 200 names on it. You will reach 11 of them today. 3 will stay on the line. 1 will become a client. You do not know which one yet. That is, in fact, the entire job. The script in front of you is 43 words. You have read it so many times the words have become shapes. You know exactly where the pause lands. After the second sentence, that is the window. That is where they decide to stay or hang up. You cannot control what happens in that window. You can control how many times you open it. By 2 p.m., you have made 91 calls. 67 went to voicemail. 14 hung up before you finished the first sentence. 8 stayed on the line long enough to hear the pitch. 2 were interested. You leave the office for a 10-minute break and stand outside in the cold eating a sandwich. You go back in. You dial number 92. Nobody on this floor knows your name yet. The managing director has never been on this floor. The people who will eventually pay you $1.4 million a year do not know this floor exists. You know this, and it does not discourage you. It clarifies something. There is a distance between here and there. Distance can be covered. The thing nobody tells you about cold calling is that the skill you are building has nothing to do with sales. It is emotional calibration. You are learning, call by call, to remove your ego from the outcome. The person who hangs up is not rejecting you. They are rejecting a 43-word script they heard in the first 2 seconds. That is a data point, not a verdict. The people who never learn this spend their careers taking the hang-up personally. You stop taking it personally around month 3. That is your first real advantage. Your social life exists in the gaps between call sessions. You leave at 7 p.m. You eat standing over a counter in an $1,100 a month apartment you share with 2 other people. You have started skipping things on Friday nights because the Saturday list requires a clear head. Nobody notices yet. The cost is invisible at this level. That does not mean it is not accumulating. There is a broker on the 2nd floor who made $140,000 last year. He told you this himself. He is 3 years ahead. You are going to close that gap in 2. You are not learning how to sell. You are learning how to absorb.
Level 2. The broker. You are 25. Your total compensation last year was $112,000. You have a book of 41 clients. 11 of them account for 80% of your revenue. You have moved to the 2nd floor. The desk is better. The headset is the same. You are not dialing lists anymore. You are managing relationships. You call your top 11 clients on a fixed schedule, every 6 weeks without fail. Not because there is a product to pitch, because the call itself is the product. You understood this before anyone told you. You drive a 3-year-old Honda Accord. Your colleagues on this floor drive leased BMWs and Audis. The difference is a choice. You are still closing the gap. You are beginning to understand what the business is actually made of. Not products, not returns, trust. The clients who have stayed with you for 3 years are not staying because of performance. They are staying because you call when you said you would. You know their kids' names. You remember the surgery in March and you ask about it in April. That is rarer in this industry than any technical skill, and it is valued accordingly. One of your 11 clients is a retired school principal in New Jersey with $340,000 and a rollover IRA. He is not your largest account. He is your most important one because he referred 3 people to you without being asked. He did it because he trusts you. You have never met him in person. You have spoken on the phone 41 times. You know more about his retirement than his children do. That is the business, not the product. the 41 calls. The institutional side looks at retail brokers the way architects look at carpenters, respectfully, from a distance. What the institutional side does not know, as a general rule, is that the best retail brokers understand human capital better than almost anyone in finance. You know how to build a relationship with someone who has no reason to trust you, no prior context, and every incentive to hang up. That skill does not appear in any analyst training program. It is not valued until it is needed. It is always eventually needed. Your longest relationship ended 6 months ago. The end was quiet, no single event. A collection of Friday nights, unreturned messages, and the specific way you looked at your phone during dinner. You filed it away quickly. 41 clients needed calling on Monday. A VP at the institutional desk 2 floors up has sent you a message asking if you want to get coffee. He has seen your client retention numbers. He wants to understand how you do it. This is the conversation that changes everything. The relationship is the product. Everything else is paperwork.
Level 3, the analyst.
You are 28. Your total compensation is $185,000. Your title is analyst. The function is closer to vice president. You made the crossing, left retail, joined the institutional side. The office is quieter. The Bloomberg terminal is always open. The conversations are about different things: LBO structures, credit spreads, debt covenants. The language changed overnight. You spent 6 months learning it the way you once learned the 43-word script, by repetition, until the shapes became words again. The first time you sit in an institutional client meeting, you say nothing for 40 minutes, not because you have nothing to offer, because you are cataloging. The VP runs the room. The client, CFO of a logistics company with $4.2 billion in annual revenue, asks about refinancing options on their revolving credit facility. The VP walks him through 3 structures. 2 of them are the right answer. One of them generates a better fee. You watch the VP choose the presentation order carefully. You file that observation away. You will use it in 4 years. What you brought with you was not on the requirements list. You can hold a CFO in conversation for 45 minutes without losing the room. Your colleagues who came through analyst programs can build a model in 18 minutes. They cannot sustain 45 minutes with a client without it feeling like a presentation. You can. The VP noticed. That is why you are here. You feel the gap between yourself and the people who came through the traditional path, the target school, the summer internship, the 2-year program. They know things you do not. You know things they do not. The distribution is not in their favor. You do not say this, you perform it. The crossing from retail to institutional is one of the rarest moves in finance, not because it requires exceptional talent, because most people on the retail side do not believe it is available to them. They build their identity around the floor they are on. The floor becomes the ceiling. You did not build your identity around the floor. You built it around the distance you intended to cover. The distance was smaller than you thought. The version of yourself that had hobbies, opinions outside of finance, a sense of what a normal week felt like, that version is becoming harder to locate. You think in basis points at dinner. You run scenario analysis on personal decisions. Your friends from before the industry find you harder to reach, not because you are unpleasant, because you are somewhere else even when you are in the room. A VP title is opening on your floor. Your MD mentioned it in passing. He did not make it a promise. He did not need to. You did not get here the way they said you had to. That is not a credential. That is a warning to everyone above you.
Level 4, the vice president.
You are 31. Your total compensation is $420,000. You own the mandates. You own the relationships. You have 2 analysts under you. You know exactly what their nights look like. You do not apologize for what you ask of them. You give them the same standard that produced you. You fly to Houston on Tuesday. You fly back Thursday. You fly to London the following week. The hotel points accumulate faster than you spend them. The airplane seat is a desk. The work does not stop because the altitude changes. You close a $280 million debt restructuring. Your name is in the engagement letter. The fee to your bank is a percentage of $280 million. You keep none of it. What you keep is the relationship. What you keep is the reputation. Those are the assets that compound. Midway through the year, you are brought into a deal advisory on a $520 million acquisition in the industrial sector. The target company is overvalued by roughly 15%. You know this. Your model says this clearly. The client knows it too, in the way that clients know things they have chosen not to say out loud. The deal closes. Your bank collects $9.4 million in fees. 6 months later, the acquisition underperforms against every projection in your model. Nobody calls you about it. Nobody calls anyone about it. You do not feel guilty. You feel like you understand the rules now. That feeling is not the same as comfort, but it is close enough that you stop distinguishing between them. You are beginning to understand something that cannot be taught directly. Proximity to capital is a form of leverage, not the financial kind, the relational kind. Every conversation you are in, every room you access, every call you take, it either increases or decreases your proximity to the next decision. You have been building this without a word for it since the cold calling floor. You have a word for it now. The deal flow at this level is not random. It never was. The mandates that come to your firm arrived because someone built a relationship 15 years ago that you are now inheriting. The relationship preceded the transaction by a decade. You are building relationships right now that will produce transactions in 2039. You cannot see those transactions yet. The people above you can. That is part of what they are paid for. You are 31. The relationship you are in requires more maintenance than you can currently provide. Not because you are indifferent, because you are in Houston on Tuesday and London the following week, and the gap between caring and being present is wider than either of you anticipated. You have a conversation about it on a Sunday. It does not resolve. You fly out Monday morning. The conversation waits. The asset you are building does not appear on any balance sheet.
Level 5, the managing director.
You are 36. Your total compensation is $1.4 million. Your calendar is a sequence of dinners, boardrooms, and conversations that are never scheduled as conversations. You do not model anymore. You call CEOs. The CFO of a major infrastructure company picks up on the second ring when you call. That is what this title means in practice. Not the compensation, not the office, the second ring. You structure a $2.6 billion leveraged buyout. You close it in 74 days. The fee to your bank is $38 million. You are already thinking about the next one before the ink clears. You have developed a discipline around consistency. Same airline, same 3 hotel chains, same restaurants where they know your order. This is not a preference. It is resource conservation. You have more important things to optimize than choices. You can no longer be surprised by a transaction. You recognize this for the first time at a closing dinner in Chicago. The deal is the largest of your career. The room is celebrating. Bottles are opened, hands are shaken. You watch yourself participate and notice, with a clinical detachment, that nothing in your body has changed since you sat down. No elevation, no release. The scale of the number, $2.6 billion, produces the same internal response as a $280 million deal did at level 4, which produced the same response as the first $340,000 client at level 2. The calibration has been running so long that the instrument no longer registers the measurement. You order another drink. You smile at the right moments. You file the observation away. The machine protects the people it cannot replace. Everyone below this level is theoretically replaceable. At this level, you are beginning to be protected, not because the firm is loyal, firms are structures, not relationships, but because the clients trust you specifically. That specificity cannot be transferred by an org chart. You built it from a cold calling floor at $32,000 a year. Nobody above you understands what it took to build from that starting point. The machine does not know what to do with something it did not produce through its own systems, so it protects it instead. You told your partner once that you no longer felt nervous about transactions. You watched their face shift in a way you could not fully interpret. They said it sounds like peace. You did not correct them, but you know the difference between peace and the absence of a nervous system response. You filed the observation away. The machine does not protect loyalty. It protects irreplaceability. Those are not the same thing.
Level 6, the principal.
You are 41. Your carry interest in the fund is worth between $18 million and $55 million, depending on performance. You stopped thinking about salary years ago. You sit on 4 boards. You are not advising anymore. You are deploying capital. You take control positions. Your portfolio companies have a combined headcount of 11,000 people. You have never met most of them. You run a $1.8 billion acquisition of a healthcare services platform. You leverage it at 62%. The structure
ensures the management team absorbs the operational downside, the fund captures the upside. It is legal, it is standard practice. The company will restructure its workforce in the next 18 months. You will not be the one to announce it. The CEO will. You will run the board call. You will use terms like operational efficiency and right-sizing. You have become precise about language in a way that would be unrecognizable to the 22-year-old reading a 43-word script. That script was designed to keep someone on the line for 30 seconds. The language you use now is designed to move capital, close rooms, and end conversations before they become problems. Right-sizing does not mean what it sounds like. Operational efficiency does not mean what it sounds like. You know this. The board knows this. The CEO knows this. Nobody in that call uses the word that means what they are all talking about. You learned on the cold calling floor that the wrong word in the second sentence cost you the window. The principle has not changed. The stakes have. You have started thinking about the system itself, not the individual transactions, the structure that produces the transactions, how capital flows, where it accumulates, what it protects. The cold calling floor was a node in that system. The PE firm is a different node. The architecture was always there. You are only now high enough to see the full shape of it. At this level, silence is the most precise instrument in the room. The person who speaks least holds the most, not because silence implies wisdom, it does not always, but because it implies patience. Patience at this level of capital is indistinguishable from power. You have not raised your voice in a professional context in 4 years. You have not needed to. You do not fully trust anyone in a professional context anymore. Not because you were betrayed, because you understand enough about incentive structures to know that trust at this level is always conditional. You extend it selectively, you retract it cleanly. This has made you more effective. You are not sure what else it has made you. You built your access from 200 calls a day. Everything above you was built the same way. They just started closer to the door.
Level 7, the architect. You are 47. Your name is on a trust. The trust owns a holding company. The holding company carries positions in 9 financial institutions across 4 jurisdictions. Some positions are disclosed. You have not executed a trade yourself in 6 years. You make decisions. Other people execute them. All of them have signed agreements that would survive a medium-sized litigation budget. You do not attend panels. You do not give interviews. You communicate through structured channels, private dinners in Singapore, Geneva, Riyadh. Nothing is written down afterward. When your fund moves, the movement produces secondary effects before most participants have processed the primary one. You are not operating on information. You are operating on pattern recognition that required 25 years to calibrate. The regulators look at what happened. You look at what is forming. You have a security detail when you travel internationally, not because anyone has threatened you specifically, because people at this level of capital are structurally a target. The detail is a function of position. You filed fear away a long time ago. There is a cold calling floor on the 3rd floor of one of your portfolio companies. You visited it once, 8 months ago, during a site review that nobody expected you to attend in person. You took the elevator to the 3rd floor instead of the 6th. The doors opened onto the floor and you stood in the doorway for 4 minutes. You did not announce yourself. Nobody looked up. The room was exactly the floor you left 25 years ago. Same carpet, same headsets, same quality of light, same specific silence between dials. 2 seconds, 3 seconds, and then the next number. You watched a 22-year-old in the 4th row get hung up on mid-sentence. He paused. He did not react. He looked at the list. He dialed again. You recognized the pause. You recognized what it meant that he did not react. You stayed in the doorway for another 90 seconds watching him work. Then you took the elevator back to the 6th floor and said nothing to anyone for the rest of the afternoon. You have not been back. The machine you helped build is now older than some of the people running it. They were not there when the foundational relationships were formed. They inherited the relationships as infrastructure. They execute inside a structure they did not design. You designed the structure. That is the difference between being someone the machine employs and being something the machine is. You crossed that line somewhere around level 5. You did not feel it cross. You have a family. You are present for them in the ways that remain available. The holidays, the dinners when there is no closing, a quality of attention that is genuine and partial simultaneously. You stopped apologizing for the partial a long time ago. You are not sure whether that is clarity or habit. You have not investigated the difference. You are not unhappy. You are not happy. Those categories dissolved somewhere around level 4 and were replaced by orientation, a permanent read on the environment, a constant positioning of what comes next against what is already in motion. You do not know what you would do if you stopped. The question surfaces periodically. You answer it the same way every time.
time. You do not stop. You started with 200 calls and no access. You built the access. That is the whole story. Everything else is structure. You spent 25 years learning how the machine works, and at some point that became indistinguishable from the machine working on you.